Tonight we're going back, all the way back to 1991. Not just to play a game, but to re-experience a turning point. This is the story of Wing Commander 2, Vengeance of the Kilrathi. And to understand why this game hit so hard, we need to first look at what it was all building on, and the massive risk it took with you, the player, right from the opening scroll. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how this one title almost broke my dad's PC.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
To understand why Wing Commander 2 mattered, it's crucial to look at what came before. The original Wing Commander in 1990 was a revelation. It took the space combat sim, a genre often focused on cold, repetitive mechanics, and wrapped it in a layer of cinematic warmth. You weren't just a pilot, you were a pilot on the TCS Tiger's Claw. You had wingmen with names and personalities, a career that could rise and fall, and a war that felt personal against the feline Kilrathi. It was a massive hit, but for Chris Roberts and the team at Origin Systems, it was just the foundation. They saw the potential to push further, to make the universe feel more alive, and the stakes feel even higher. Vengeance of the Kilrathi, released just a year later in September of 1991, was that ambitious leap. It arrived at a time when PC gaming was rapidly evolving, with sound cards becoming standard and CD-ROM drives starting to whisper promises of a multimedia future. Wing Commander 2 stood right on that precipice, looking forward. And the way they chose to start the story is still one of the boldest narrative openings in gaming. Let me show you what I mean. Wing Commander 2 picks up with one of the most powerful hooks in gaming, the utter disgrace of failure. In the closing moments of the first game's secret missions, the legendary carrier Tiger's Claw is destroyed. You encounter mysterious, flickering fighters you can't properly target, but your flight recorder is damaged. With no evidence, your claims of Kilrathi stealth fighters are dismissed. This results in you being court-martialed and branded the coward of Tithrak Mang, and exiled to a backwater patrol. The game begins not with a hero's welcome, but with a decade of shame hanging over you. The immediate personal stakes change everything. Your motivation isn't just to win the war, it's to clear your name, to prove you weren't a coward, and to expose a terrifying new Kilrathi technology. This personal crusade is woven into a larger, structured campaign tree. Unlike the first game's more open progression, Wing Commander 2's story branches based on success or failure, but it always drives forward, pulling you through a plot filled with twists, traitors, and tragic sacrifices. Characters like the stern Admiral Tolwyn become more than just portraits. Through expanded dialogue and story sequences, they feel like crewmates, for better or worse. But a great story needs a believable world to live in. So how did Origin make this universe feel more alive in 1991? The answer lies in a series of technical and design choices that were all about immersion. The technical improvements, while subtle on paper, were profound in practice. The sprite-based graphics were richer, with more detailed ship models and vibrant space environments. The audio took a monumental step forward. This was one of the first PC games to incorporate significant voice acting, available through the separate speech accessory pack.
Guards, you are dismissed. Arise, grandson. How goes the war against the humans?
Hearing their wingmen's tense radio chatter, Admiral Tolwyn's disdain, or the Kilrathi's guttural threats wasn't just a novelty, it was an immersion multiplier. The game's manual, presented as Jones fighting spacecraft, added immense depth. It wasn't merely a list of control layouts, it was an uber-detailed pilot's guide, complete with technical schematics, weapon explanations, and fictional commentary that sold the reality of this war. And the heart of this experience was the ships themselves. The roster in Wing Commander 2 wasn't just a list of stats, it was a carefully crafted ecosystem of roles, and learning to fly each one was like learning a new instrument in a combat symphony. The cockpit design evolved too, from nimble fighters to the hulking broadsword bomber. Each had a unique instrument layout. The interface with its target lock brackets, radar and radio communication screens made you feel plugged into a real spacecraft's systems. It was a masterclass in the elegance of design, where every element served both gameplay and the broader in-game world. Now, anyone who's ever played a Wing Commander game knows firsthand how the ships are the real star of the show, and Wing Commander 2 expanded the roster intelligently. The Terran Confederation lineup saw upgrades and new additions. You'd start in a humble patrol craft, but soon graduate to the workhorses like the rapier and the formidable saber, which introduced rear turrets. The real thunder came, however, with the A-17D broadsword heavy bomber. This was a lumbering beast, equipped with torpedoes that were capable of smashing through the shield of the enemy's capital ships, and also featured multiple turret positions you could switch between. And I remember the first time I got behind the controls flying a broadsword, taking this flying fortress on a bombing run, managing gunner positions, and having nerves of steel when lining up a slow torpedo lock with the enemy's flak exploding all around you. A white-knuckle ride, not for the faint of heart. And when I finally released the torpedoes and saw them rip apart a Kilrathi battleship, it was so exhilarating and felt more real than any other game I'd ever experienced before. Now, the Kilrathi received their own upgrades as well. The Sartha replaced the Stealthy as a light nuisance. The Drakhi and Jalkai provided heavy opposition, and the Drikath emerged as their answer to the broadsword. God, I hope I pronounced those correctly. Combat itself was a symphony of managing various systems in your craft. You monitored shield and armor levels on your VDU, managed weapon capacitor energy, and had to choose between laser, mass drivers, neutron, and particle cannons, each with different range, damage, and heat properties. Missile selection was tactical, heat seekers for tailing shots, and image recognition for stubborn targets. The addition of the ITTS, the improved target tracking system in advanced fighters, gave you a lead indicator, but using it effectively still required skillful piloting. The experience didn't end with the final mission of the main campaign. Origin had a bigger plan, and it involved expanding the story in ways that would directly influence how sequels were made. The 2 expansion packs, Special Operations 1 and 2, continued the story, adding new ships, missions, and layers of political intrigue. Special Operations 1 is notable for a truly bizarre moment of temporary alliance, forcing you into a surreal team-up with your arch-nemesis, Crown Prince Thrakas himself, against a common enemy. These expansions push the narrative into gray areas, dealing with mutinies, rebel factions, and human traitor organizations like the Mandarins. They also introduced new gameplay wrinkles like the crossbow torpedo bomber and the devastating unguided Mace nuclear missile. The expansion of story and system showed Origin treating the universe as a living experience, with accurate continuity throughout, was something that was quite rare for the time. The legacy of Wing Commander 2 is massive. It solidified the formula of story-driven space combat. It proved that PC gamers were hungry for narrative depth and production values. It directly paved the way for the full-motion video extravaganza of Wing Commander 3 and 4, which would feature Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame.
Use the Force, Luke.
More than that, it created a template for making players care about their pixelated wingmen and the fate of their digital squadron. In many ways, the emotional stakes of modern narrative games can trace a line back to the feeling of losing a wingman that you'd flown a dozen sorties with, even if their death was just a line of text and a changed portrait. So with all that history, the real question is, does it still work today? Can a game from 1991, with all its technical limitations, still deliver a satisfying experience? Let's break down exactly what holds up and, more importantly, why. For all of the pixels and raspy voice samples, the core experience remains compelling. It's not held back by cumbersome mechanics. The action is immediate, the objectives are clear, and the feedback loop of combat, upgrade, and story progression is tight. The strategic layer of managing your standing and navigating the branching campaign gives you a sense of agency, but perhaps its greatest strength today is its pacing. The mission can be completed in a focused sitting. There are no open worlds to get lost in, no endless side quests. It's a curated cinematic experience from an era before that term was commonplace. The manual's rich lore provides all the context you need, creating a believable universe. For a modern player, especially one with limited time, it offers a complete, satisfying narrative arc and thrilling gameplay that doesn't overstay its welcome. It respects your time while offering depth for those who seek it, whether that's mastering the flight model or hunting down every last piece of lore in the included novel excerpt. And that, I think, is the key to its enduring appeal. It's a focused dose of a specific feeling, one that's becoming increasingly rare. And for me, that feeling is wrapped up in a very specific memory, one that may sound familiar to a few of you that have read my Great Moments in Retro Gaming History series on social media. So, Before I got my hands on it, I'd saved up for weeks from a part-time job in high school, and I marched into the software store with a stack of cash, determined to buy the very first PC game of my own. I brought the big box home, devoured all of the info in the manuals, and rushed to install it on the only computer in the house, my dad's old business PC. Yeah, it was an underpowered machine. It absolutely did not meet the game's system requirements. I'll never forget installing it, booting it up, and watching the opening cinematic. It didn't really play. It stuttered. It was like a digital slideshow, updating maybe one frame every second or two. The sound crackled. By any modern standard, it was a totally broken experience. But oddly, I was completely captivated, because even watching that slideshow, I could still see the story. I could see the graphics. I could see the tiger's claw exploding. I could see the disdain on Admiral Talon's face, watching the animation one painful frame at a time. And once I got into the cockpit, the game itself miraculously ran. The graphics, the sprites, the action, it all worked. Even running at a lower frame rate than it should have, it was still playable. And let me tell you, it was glorious. That's the magic of this game. It wasn't about the technical presentation being perfect. It was about the world it built and the story that it made you feel part of. I wasn't playing on a cutting-edge rig. I was playing on a machine that had no business running it, and it still hooked me. And that feeling of playing something that felt so advanced made every dogfight, every torpedo run, feel intensely personal. I'd spent time in the virtual bar listening to the chatter and feeling like part of the crew. Wing Commander 2 Vengeance of the Kilrathi is a cornerstone of PC gaming history, and most importantly, it's still a damn good time. It reminds us that the magic of gaming isn't always about polygons and pixel counts. It's about a great story, told well, that makes you feel like you're at the center of it. So if you ever get the urge to climb back into the cockpit, to hear that mission computer chime, to fly one more sortie for the Confederation, know that the Concordia is still out there waiting for you. But that's just what I think. What's your take on the Wing Commander series? How does it stack up to the modern online space games of today? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your views. And don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'd like to invite you to subscribe for more feel-good retro gaming content. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
I will return, human.